Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome back to my rail route tutorial series. This is a part 2, and I highly recommend you go and check out the other videos in this series, especially the part 1 to this, and the link to the playlist is in the video description. Right, now where were we? Ah yes, back to more construction. Let's step things up a notch and go to the mid-game with arrival and departure sensors. We're going to upgrade the existing network that we've got here. It is nowhere near good enough to be able to cope with its proper demand. So let's just jump into that construction mode and go through. I'm going to put the tracks in like this, and I'm just going to make it so that we have 2 tracks moving across like that. And I'm going to add a signal here for when a train is coming back, and a signal there for when a train's waiting to go in here. I think that should pretty much do for most of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our departure sensor out of our bag. And departure sensors only go on the platform. So I'm going to click on the platform, and you can see it snaps to the platform there. And we're going to have a departure sensor down here as well. I'm not sure if we need one at Easterhouse, but I'll chuck it on anyway. We don't have to worry about money in this particular mode at the moment. And then we're going to need some arrival sensors. Now, in this particular example, our trains are always going to be going to the same platform. But arrival sensors allow trains to go to multiple different platforms. And I can show you an example of that shortly. So I'm going to put the arrival sensor right before the signals that go in towards the station. And again, on this side, arrival sensor, signal, junction into station. Then I'm going to select the arrival sensor out of build mode to click on the signal to configure it and say, hey, this arrival sensor controls this signal going into click this station. And there you go. And all the trains will just get routed in there. Then we can right click to come away from that and do the same on the other side. This sensor, when a train goes over it, interacts with this signal and they go to that station and get routed in. Okay. And that is pretty much it. The only thing we have to do now is these departure ones. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say for this departure sensor, I want trains to route to this auto signal if you're going to that station. And I want trains to route to this auto signal if they're going to that station. Okay. And then we'll do the same over on the other departure sensors. So I want trains to route to here if they're going to that station. And I want trains from Easterhouse to route to there if they're going to that station. There we go. That should be all the automation needed for that particular network. Let's unpause the game, let it run and see how it goes. So we've upgraded it by adding the lines in there. We've got up and down lines with these departure and arrival sensors. And as you can see, the train nicely arrives in the station, turns around, goes down the line, and it allocates that route out automatically down into the correct platforms, flipping all those switches as needed. Now, I promised you a little bit more of a complex example of that. Let's go and jump to another game and have a look at it. So here we are at Rotterdam Port, and this is part of my live Let's Play. And you can see over here we've got a sensor that we've put in. It is an arrival sensor, and this arrival sensor is actually inside an auto block. And we've got a train coming up to that arrival sensor now, and that arrival sensor is connected to this particular signal, and that signal is connected to the station. So this arrival sensor activates this auto signal into this station. And going into this station, there's 3 different options that those trains could take, and it will depend on the train's route. So you can see that this train, it's flashing there, wants to go to platform 5 at the next station. So as it comes over this arrival sensor, the auto signal will switch these switches and route the train into platform 5. So let's watch that happen now. So the train is entering the block, and then as it moves forward in the block, the train will allocate that route out, and it will go in and over to platform 5. Just waiting for it to come through. There it is, there it is. So the allocation came through platform 5, and the train will pop out of that section shortly. Another train just went into that section. That train wants to go to, let's just pause it a second. Where does it want to go? Platform 2. So the next train gets routed into platform 2, and you can see there it goes through. So that's the arrival sensor working, going into different platforms on the same line. The last bit in this particular segment of the video is going to be about the routing sensor. Now, it is not used as often as the other sensors, but can be very useful if you've got one line that can end up at two different stations. So, whereas the relay sensor just says, hey, go forward into that one place and only that one place, you can get the routing sensor to control an auto signal and send a train down different tracks depending on which station is next in its list. Similar to how the arrival sensor sends trains down different tracks depending on what platform they're meant to arrive at, the routing sensor sends trains down tracks depending on what station is next. So how could we possibly implement the routing sensor on this particular network? Well, what we can do is we can say all the trains coming out of platform 3 are currently going to Glasgow Central, but what if they want to go to a different station? Well, we can use the routing sensor. We can pop a routing sensor in just here, and then we can say, right, let's route trains from an auto signal into a particular way. So we'll pop a signal in there, and we'll give the trains an option to go to a different piece of track. Okay, so then we can say, right, come out of construction mode. And then this routing sensor, we can say, hey, trains coming up to this signal, if they want to go to this signal, then maybe they should be going that way for Glasgow Station. For trains that go up to this signal, they might want to go to this station. Okay, so you can see how you can have the routing sensor configured to send trains to different signals depending on which station they're going to. And you can actually get multiple of these as well. You can say, hey, you can go down to that signal if you're going to these stations, and you can go down to this signal if you're going to, let's see, both of these stations. Now, in this particular example, that doesn't work. You'll end up trains going the wrong way, but you get the idea. Now, before we talk about shunting and stuff, we're going to have a quick look at the speed upgrades. So earlier on, I talked about how we had different pieces of track with different speed limits, and we've been using the 40 piece of track all over our network. If we want to upgrade, we can choose the speed that we want to upgrade to. In this case, I'm going to choose 80, and you can click along the line to upgrade that piece of track. And you can go along various different sections like this to upgrade those various sections. Now, the other way of doing it is to hover over a piece of track and press the shortcut key, in this case C, and it will upgrade that segment of track. That works as well with stations, and of course it also works with auto blocks. Now, with auto blocks, again, if you build through it like this, it will upgrade the entire section all the way through. So it depends on how much you want to upgrade and which parts you want to upgrade as to how you might do it. Now, there is also an extra note there about auto blocks. When you're upgrading your track, it can cost a lot of money, especially if you're going to the highest speeds. 10,000 for one square of track compared to 800 is a lot. So what you can do is concentrate on upgrading certain things, and those certain things are your auto blocks. You get a good cost benefit from upgrading an auto block. If I want to upgrade this auto block, you can see that upgrading it is going to cost me 6,000 to upgrade it from what it is to what it needs to be. But that auto block represents a much longer part of the journey. So you get more speed for your train's journey for the money, because the train takes time to get through that auto block. It's representing a long section of track in a small area, but you still pay the small price. So when upgrading your track, upgrade your auto blocks first, and then work out which bits you want. And finally, in this miscellaneous little section before the shunting, we've got tunnels. Tunnels are brilliant ways to get around problems. If I want to be able to get a train round down the bottom from here up into Easterhouse, it could be quite difficult to get it across this track, especially trying to think about the way that the trains cross the tracks and so forth. Also, when you have trains crossing other tracks, this can cause slowdown on the network while trains wait for other trains. So what we can do is things like this. We could remove the existing piece of track and try and use a tunnel to allow a train to connect round. So let's get a little bit of track coming out of the platform, and we'll also get a little bit of track coming off this line. Yeah, that looks good to me. Then we can get the tunnel, connect it to one end of the track, and come around and connect it to the other end of the track. And you can see how the tunnel making shows you the route of the tunnel under the ground, and it can get over those other tracks without causing any problems. Now trains from one section of the network can just disappear down that tunnel and go direct without interrupting the other parts. Tunnels are great for getting across other lines, round other bits, and out of sharp, tight areas. And keep an eye on them because they really do unlock and open up a whole mountain of possibilities. Next up, we're going to look at those shunting and stabling sensors. Well, what's the difference between the two? Well, the shunting sensor you use to manipulate your train in some sort of way, either move it to a particular location or turn it around and detach the engine. And you can do that to all the trains going along the lines and at stations. So you can place them on track and at stations. Whereas the stabling sensor is specifically for trains with multiple legs of journeys. Once it's finished its leg of journey at the station, then the commands will activate for you to move it to where you need it to be. So the stabling sensor can only be placed at stations and is used in between legs of journeys, and the shunting sensor can be placed on track and stations and will activate on all sorts of trains that go over it. Let's give one of these a bit of use. So we've got a train coming down the track here. It's going to go into the station, and once it's finished there, it's going to come back again, but it's going to be facing the wrong way. So we want to turn the train around because backwards trains go slowly. Now ideally I'd build this near the station, but I'm going to do it over here where I've got a bit more room. We'll go into building mode and we'll put down some track. So after we come out of this auto block, I'm going to say we're going to come down here. We're going to go down a piece of track, and then we'll turn the train around and we'll bring that train back up and on the line. Okay, now to turn it round, we're going to need a signal at the end, and a signal probably there. That should be long enough, I think, for that train. And to be able to have commands on these, we need to be able to put a shunting circuit on the signals. There we go. So now we've got our turning around section, the track leading in and out of our turning around section. We can put our shunting sensor, in this case I'm putting it inside the auto block, and we can then program it to say, hey, when you get to this signal, I want all the trains, so I'm not going to mess around with any of that, to activate these commands. And the commands are going to be, go down to this signal, then turn the train round, and then come round to, there we go, round to this signal, and then that's it. You carry on your way. So there's all the commands. And that's it. That's going to be, all the trains are going to get turned around. Now you might not want all the trains to turn around, so you'll probably need to have to decide on your composition of your train, and this is an unlock that you'll need to get. So bear in mind that the direction of the trains in this diagram relate to which signal you chose either side of the actual sensor. Okay, so that's like facing the sensor in both scenarios, and if I click on the other one, it is again facing the sensor. It's not that way or that way. Okay, so if the train locomotive's at the front, if the train's locomotive's at the back, in the direction of travel towards the signal that we've got there. So that's okay. We've got that all sorted out. I think I accidentally left one of them on there. I did. Okay, let's get the one we don't need away. And if we unpause the game, we will see the train go into the station, and it'll have a timer, and we'll skip forward to when that train leaves, and we'll watch it turn around in our new turnaround block. Okay, so our train is about to leave the station, and as it does do, we dispatch it out, and it's going to come to our section that we've programmed in. It'll go into the auto block, the sensor will pick it up and send it down those list of commands. You can see it's going to go in one way, turn the train round, and back on the line, and this time it's going out forward and in the correct direction. That is one use of that particular type of shunting circuit. Another thing you can do is detach the engine and move that separately. So let's set up that. So this time I'm going to put the sensor on the platform, and I'm going to give it a number of commands to move the train around. First thing we're going to do is come out of one way, so we're going to detach the engine. I think the engine's going to be on this side, so we'll need a bit of track coming out, and the track can go to there. And then we'll need to go up and into the other platform. So we need a signal on the end, and we need a signal here. Now this is a tiny space for a train to be in, but we're not moving the entire train. This time we're just going to move the engine, and that space is big enough for it. So the engine will come out, we'll send it around, we'll turn it around, we'll use platform 3 to bring the engine through, and then the engine will need to be reversed again. So we'll come down here and do it. So we'll put a signal on the end there and a signal there, and that will do the job. Once we get our shunting circuits, I think we might need it. I don't think we'll need that one. We'll definitely need these ones. We'll certainly need that one as well. Okay, let's now get the commands in there, and we'll say, hey, from this sensor going in this direction, I want to give my trains some commands. We're going to say detach the loco. That's what that symbol there is. It's detaching the loco. So we'll detach the loco. Then we'll say go to this signal, turn around, go to this signal, turn around again, and go back to the platform and attach to the train. So you can see that we've sent in the engine around platform 3. Okay. So that is the commands, and another way that you can move things around. So if you're just moving the engine, this little setup here is all you need in various different places. We've got a train that we can dispatch, so we can say, hey, let's have this one. We want it to come down to platform 4 and then go back that way. There we go. So our train's going to come now. It's going to come in and it's going to do the maneuvers. So 25 times speed to get us started. And when the train comes into the station, I'll slow us down just a little bit so that we can see the maneuver. So what will happen now is that engine detaches as per the commands, and it will go on into the next block. Through the block and reverse. Then we're going to use platform 3 just to send it round. Now if you don't want a train to go through the platform, you could just have a piece of track, but there wasn't really space for it here, so I decided to use one of the platforms, and well, you can do if you want to. Now that the engine's on the other side, we're going to turn it round, send it back into platform 4, connect it up with a train. There we go. So you don't have to go through the platform, you can go round. And now the train is the other way around with the engine in the correct direction. And once again, the train will depart from the station as normal. So they're the two main examples of things you can do with that particular sensor, to be able to use the shunting sensor to maneuver a train or the train engine about. And you can try your own designs and different ways of doing it. But we're going to move now on to the stabling sensor. This is that one where between legs of journeys, we're going to do something with a train. And what I've decided is I'm going to get the train to come out of the platform so that it's not taking up space. And I'm going to get it to come up this piece of track, and I want it to just wait here and go back in. Now, the train will probably want to turn around. So I've got a bit of track there where the train can come out of platform 4 and into that piece of track. But if it goes back again, the train's going to be the wrong way. Now, we could use the other sensors to potentially detach the engine and move it around and stuff. And we could get really complex, but I'm not going to be really complex today. I'm going to give myself a nice little loop for my train to go through, and that will turn me around. So I'm going to add my signals. I'm going to add probably just one signal here for a simple example, and I'll show you a more complex example after this. And then we're going to need our shunting circuit, so I'll put one on here. I don't think we'll need one on there. Let's put one there, and there we go. Let's get now that particular stabling sensor. So now we'll configure it. We'll click on there and say, hey, a train that's coming in here. Okay, we're going to give it some commands. We're going to say, what I want you to do is I want you to go to this signal, then come out and go down to that signal. And then you get a few different options here. We're going to use the wait. Okay, so this is the reuse symbol, and it will reuse the train for the next leg of the journey. And the 3 minutes there is how many minutes it will be until the required time for it to go back to the platform. I'm going to change that to 2 minutes with my scroll wheel, and then we click the go to platform by schedule. And this way, a train that comes in that is that's finished its leg will go off into that siding, wait there, and then come back to the station when it's needed. Let's get a contract to do that, throw that onto our network nice and quickly. So we're going to go from there down into platform 4. Yep, The next leg of the journey is going to be from platform 4 back to platform 3. Brilliant. If you want to know more about contracts, check out my contracts video coming soon. Get subscribed. And we'll let the train come out. So the train comes out, comes down the line. It's going to get routed into platform 4 just like before, except this time, once it's finished unloading, which you'll do in a couple of seconds, that train is going to get put down into our siding there. It's going to go and get stabled. Okay, now it's not going to start the next leg of its journey until 7 minutes past 11, so that's not actually that long a time. I've talked for a little while, but we will just do a little cut here and fast forward to it. Okay, so our train is now required. It's sent back to platform 4 where it begins the next leg of its journey and it departs and away. So there we go, that is the stabling sensor. I'm going to show you a more complicated version of the stabling now. So here we go, it is much more complicated as you can see, but if we just hide the trains and some of the other bits of information on the screen, you can see we've got a couple of platforms here with the sensors on. And what we're doing is we're sending the trains into this yard. Now, we've got some terminus sections and we've got some through sections in this yard with the loop. And that allows us to decide whether we want to put a train in there and bring it back out without turning it round, or put a train in there and bring it all the way through and allow the train to get turned around at the same time. Okay, so some of the commands on these circuits look as something a little bit like this. We've got stabling rules that say where the next leg is to allow us to say which way it's going to be going next, so we can decide whether it needs to be turned around. And we've got trains coming from both directions, not just from one direction, so we need rules about trains arriving from the other way as well. But there we go, it can get very complex and you can build really interesting and complicated things with it. But start small, build up and just add those rules onto your sensors and you'll be building up to things that look like this, or probably more complex if you want to. So there's a few examples about how you can use those sensors. Those 3 basic ways of doing it, and you can see also how it can get very complicated and varied if you choose to do the more advanced things. Now the final things to look at are just a couple of quick ones. So we've got the buildings here at the very end and they're very straightforward. The conductor's office you place next to a station. You can see you get this dotted line and that allows you to get green contracts from that station, and the dispatcher's office you do the same thing and that allows you to get your red contracts at that particular station. Now remember, you can click the station, middle click to configure, to see what type of contracts that particular station does offer, because not all stations do both types of contracts. And the final one is the coach yard. This is really straightforward. This is used for your urban transits, and you can see here that it allows trains from urban transits to come out of the coach yard and go back in at the beginning and start of their journeys. And you can just pop down the coach yard. You can see it gets attached to a station, and then you just hook up your track and you can call trains in and out of that coach yard. And you can see there's a few different configurations you can do in terms of how long you want your trains to be auto dispatched out of the coach yard into the station and back. But if you want to have a look at the contracts and how to use those urban contracts, I do have a contracts tutorial coming soon. So like I said before, get subscribed for the rest of the videos coming out in this series. And if you did enjoy this video or found something in it useful, please do give it a like. It does help me out. All your thoughts, ideas, and of course your questions, pop them down in the comments below and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching, take care, and for now, goodbye.